How do we increase then consumer access to sustainable foods?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think that the approach is many, and one thing I would just say is Food Inc. has done a very fine job of compiling a variety of links that will take you to different organizations. But I think that finding out where your food choices are that take you out of the industrial agricultural model. And one thing that everyone who eats needs to know, that unless you have found something else, you are eating industrial food at the supermarket, at the fast food, in many cases under the label of things called natural and all natural and etc.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to get into, that whole difference between that and what we do have access to in the stores, and then how do we get access to support this?
You're going to have to look, and at the same time, I think that advocacy is going to be critical. So if regular, everyday consumers, not the farmers who are trying to produce food in an alternative fashion, but the people who are seeking it, when they contact their legislator and when they contact the USDA and when they contact Obama and they say the farm bill is completely skewed, money should be geared toward supporting farmers in becoming and maintaining their organic status and also in lowering the price of food to common people. Because food is cheap. Because taxpayers pay for the farm bill, and the farm bill pays for people to raise this nasty food. That's why food is cheap. You pay for it one way or another, and we're paying for it in poor health and high taxes. And I am not an anti-tax, anti-government farmer, and there are many out there, but I happen not to be one of them.
Did the new legislation that was passed by Obama in January that requires proof of separate and identifiable contribution, blah, 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 to subsidies, how does that affect you as a sustainable farmer?
I'm not sure. I think that what Obama's trying to do is to create some transparency in the farm bill, in the ways agricultural money gets dispersed. And I know that actually there is now money out there to support organic agriculture. And some of it is actually to retrain the people from the USDA and the extensions around the country and agricultural colleges in many cases to understand the work. I know that when we got started, I contacted our county extension person, and he had nothing to offer me. He had no idea. When we contacted one of the USDA programs, they came out and they looked at our land, and they had no idea what it meant to be raising chickens the way we raise them. They need to be educated. For example, we need a well. We put in a well. They cost a lot of money. The water isn't potable. We have to start again. We went back to that agency, the USDA program, which is Natural Resources Conservation Services. And under that, if you need a well for your livestock, then you can get help for that. But livestock is defined in Texas as cattle. And if you have surface water, meaning a pond, then you don't need any other water. And we said, well, our cattle can drink out of our ponds, but our chickens can't. And they just could not change their orientation to even attempt to fight for supporting our need for a livestock well, because in their mind, there's only one way to look at it. So I know this isn't a good answer, and there's a whole lot more about the Farm Bill and about these farming subsidies than I can begin to describe. Organic Consumers Association, OCA, which is at oca.org, does a pretty good job of explaining to consumers and farmers what some things mean when it is pertinent. So they've done a lot of talk about dairies and this whole issue around hiding the content of growth hormones in milk. And so they may actually have more information on it. I'm not really sure.
Would you recommend that people steer clear of businesses that are generally assumed to be places to go for organic, sustainable foods like Whole Foods? Would you recommend going to a farmer's market over a Whole Foods?
Yes, I would. I think there's a place for Whole Foods, and Whole Foods actually comes out of Austin, so that's its own issue. We haven't received any money from them. I'm just being careful because I'm not in support of what they do because they're near me. I'm support because they actually put money into helping farmers produce food. But they also typically ask for a corner of that market. And the money is always going to go through a middle person, and so the farmer will receive less. I advocate that you find out, use localharvest.com or Eat Wild. Local Harvest is very good, and it's free to the farmer to change what their ads are. And find out who's around you and go to their farm. That would be the number one thing to do, because you get an education you're never going to get, not even at a farmer's market. But you're not going to get all your food at people's farms. So go to farmers markets and talk to people and ask them how they grow their stuff. And if you like their personalities and their beliefs and you have a lot in common, but they aren't organic, ask them to be. Ask them what kind of support they need to become organic and see what you might be able to offer. And I don't mean that you'll do it for them or pay it for them, but it might be, well, I can call my, state representative too and say, get some money freed up to help this farmer in your district to make the transition. Or whatever your beliefs are. The closer you can get to your food source, the better for those who produce that food source. I think that the issue that you raise, though, is around pseudo-organic values. Organic Consumers Association is good for this. It's not the only source. But they'll let you know which one of those big companies, like Organic Valley is many, many, many farms spread across the country that all put their goods, let's say milk, into Organic Valley goods. Organic Valley is very good to their farmers. They help them find feedstuffs. They help them work through the system. They don't underpay them. So if you're going to choose between the Whole Foods brand and Organic Valley, I'd say you'd probably go with Organic Valley. But those things change. So, you have to educate yourself and you have to kind of stay on it too.
LeeAnn just asked a really good question. She said if going to a farmer's market, how would she know if products are produced on a sustainable farm? Just by asking questions, or is there any way she could know besides that?
You can ask. Some of it's going to be belief. If your gut makes you wonder and you can get out there, then go see their farm. Another thing is going to be price because it costs money to raise food using organic feed if it's meat or not using fertilizers. It takes a great deal more physical labor to produce vegetables when you're fertilizing the ground with compost and you're rotating crops instead of just putting in some fertilizer, and you're controlling the pests by actually picking them off of plants instead of spraying pesticides. So if you want to see, then you're going to have to go to their farms and really look for yourself and smell and listen. If you don't hear any bugs and you don't hear any birds, then they're probably killing the flora and the fauna with petrochemicals.
Which takes us kind of into the Monsanto question. I know it's a really bad topic, but it is important. I mean, a lot of consumers don't know out there as far as, okay, we're buying, our regular core foods and stuff from the large farms. Well, they're doing that because, Monsanto is involved, because they're making it cheaper, quote unquote, and they're also telling people that they have figured out how to feed the huge population by 2050. But what are we looking at later on as far as their seeds and their pesticides as opposed to the organic farming?
Monsanto is not the only bad guy, but wow, is it a biggie. It is trying to get its products out worldwide. And when it does, their seeds do not reproduce. So we end up with contaminated natural or heritage seed fields where these farmers can gather their own seed and reseed. And then you end up with a field that when that crop is done, it's sterile. There's not going to be any reseeding